Thank you for joining us here at Frontneck Baptist Church here in Cocoa, Florida. We apologize for the fact that we had lost our audio today, but this is the Apostle series with Pastor Bill McGinnis, and we're talking about the Apostle Andrew and what Andrew was to the apostles. Andrew was that secondary person, that person that stands behind the scenes and does the hard work. He was a hard-working disciple. He's mentioned 12 times in the New Testament, nicknamed the Usher, for many that came to Jesus came through Andrew. He was conservative and deeply devoted to Jesus. He started as a disciple under John the Baptist and was there when Jesus was baptized. In the end, we'll see that he was a patron saint of Scotland. He stayed in the shadow of Peter, but he was a devoted and humble servant of Christ. He lived in that shadow that a lot of us understand of having older siblings that do that shining and being that upfront person when you're the person in the background doing the work. You know, I lived in that, and my brother was a very outgoing, a very well-liked, and I was just that person that was in the behind the scenes. Andrew is one of the 12, and he's the third one of the 12 that we're talking about. We've already covered Peter and Bartholomew. This is a picture, and it shows John the Baptist pointing out Christ to his disciples. John the Baptist. Remember, John was called John the Baptist because he did a lot of baptizing. John was an Estes. That was the third, Sadducees, Pharisees, and Estes. They were the ones that stayed separated. And thou, child, shall be called the prophet of the highest, for thou shalt go before the face of the Lord and prepare his ways. He was the herald of Christ. John 1, 35-37. Again, the next day after John stood and two of his disciples looking upon Jesus as he walked, he said, Behold the Lamb of God. And the two disciples heard him speak, and they followed Jesus. Now this was that first time that somebody had called out Jesus and said, There's the Christ. And these two disciples of John went and chased him down. In this slide you'll see that it says, Come and see. Okay, they wanted to know who this person was that John thought was important. So 1 John 38-40, Then Jesus turned, and seeing them following, said to them, What do you seek? And they said to him, Rabbi, which is say, Teacher, where are you staying? They wanted to spend time with Jesus and find out who Jesus was and what was different about him. Why would John say this about Jesus? And he said, Come and see. And they came and saw where he was staying, and they remained with him that day. Now it was the 10th hour, and one of the two of them who heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. Now what's important about this is they stayed all day with Jesus, talking and asking questions, till it became late in the afternoon. And in Jewish law, especially on the Sabbath day, you can only travel for so far. This was probably beyond the bounds of how they could get home. Well, the first thing after knowing who this Jesus person was, the first thing Andrew wanted to do was go get his own brother. So he first found his own brother Simon and said to him, We have found the Messiah, which is translated the Christ. What a heart you have found, and you believed in Jesus, and the first thing you want to do is go tell your brother. Now, using that word usher, he was the one that ushered many people in to see Jesus. He was kind of that person in the front. So one of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, There is a lad here who has 5 barley loaves, 2 fishes, but what are they among so many? So what did he do? He put action to his words. He went out and found somebody that had food that Jesus is going to use to feed these, but still there's a little bit of, well, I don't know what good this is going to do. But he took that step to usher this young boy in. Here's another part of the ushering. Here is Jerusalem, turned the time of the feast, and the Greeks who believed in the Father Jehovah had come in to worship, And so they wanted to see Jesus. Now there were certain Greek among those who came to worship at the feast. Then they came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida of Galilee, and asked him, saying, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. And Philip came and told Andrew, and in turn Andrew and Philip told Jesus. Notice that Philip came to Andrew to get to Jesus. So he was kind of like, most good bosses, they'll have a secretary, so the small things are taken care of by, like in this case, the disciples before they ever get to Jesus. Now we're moving into a different part of the story. Jerusalem has fallen. The Jews had revolted, and when they revolted, the Romans came and they destroyed Jerusalem and burnt Herod's temple. Okay, and then after it was burnt, the disciples left Jerusalem and left Israel, and they scattered and they became missionary. Andrew is said to have been martyred by crucifixion in the city of Patros, that is by Athens, Greece. Andrew had converted the wife of the Roman governor to Christianity, and when the governor's wife would not recant his faith, this is a big deal because that Roman governor was an important seat and people looked to him, and their religion was to worship Caesar. And to have his own wife convert to Christianity, that was probably a slap in the face for them. Now, this is historical, and so therefore we can't put any basis of the Bible on it. But early texts describe Andrew as bound, not nailed to a Latin cross, the kind on which Jesus had been crucified. Now here's where tradition comes in that changes from what we know from a historical record to what is passed down. And it's kind of like that game you play where you say something to somebody and they say something to somebody else and it continues on. The tradition in that was that he was nailed to an X cross. Now why is that X cross important? Scotland, who accepted Andrew as their patron saint. Why? Andrew was a fisherman. He was a worker. He was that second behind the scenes person. And the Scottish flag is actually called the St. Andrew's Cross because they used that to protect themselves, saying that our patron saint is Andrew. And when they were going to be attacked by England, they went to the Pope and they said, our patron saint, St. Andrew, we are with you, the church. Would you please protect us? And the Pope ordered the king to leave them alone. And that's why St. Andrew's Day is the day the Scottish people uses their Independence Day, because they didn't have an actual Independence Day. So it's strange because Andrew never visited at any time Scotland, but that is their patron saint. So thank you for visiting Frontenac Baptist Church.